How we doing? We're gonna try another one of these WTF Wednesdays since actually got a pretty good response from Showgirls, which I really didn't expect. Just like with all these, like I've been kind of impressed and also like a little bit like, oh, I wish I was giving people more than what they're getting sitting here. But my cat's moving around under the table just as I hit record. It's all right. I've had co-stars that need attention before. I'm used to it. So yeah, thank you to everybody who watched last time. A bunch of people had given me suggestions for other movies to do, and I want to get to them. But I figured the best way to start with a What the Fuck Wednesday would be with the original What the Fuck movie, which would be Face of Death. So when it comes to feeding the algorithm and the Google Analytics and all those things that YouTubers do to get views, this is the complete opposite. Also, everybody who was talking about my stovetop, there's the Batman black and white statues there. I don't cook. I don't really know how to cook. And when I left my other job, I had a bunch of collectibles and whatnot that were in a bookcase in my office, and I have a collector's case in my living room, which is full of like old film stuff, and I didn't want to like put stuff in there and make it all junky, so I put them there. It's not a fire hazard because I don't use my stove very often, if not ever. I'm never home. I'm usually at the theater or you know, behind a grocery store crying. I don't know what I do. Um, so yeah, I'm an idiot, but I'm not a fucking idiot. So don't worry. They're just there for the ladies. I don't know who was. I think the last time a lady came here was September. So yeah. Oh my god, this is what I drink. So yeah, I was going through Tubi, and I found that Face of Death was on there, and I was like, boy, what a crowd pleaser. Um, so I wanted to do something that was a little less review and a little bit more kind of story time. I know I've told this story before, but not the full one. If you've never seen Face of Death before, it kind of has like an urban legend quality, a rite of passage quality to people who are my age. We had heard about it through someone else, and then it became this thing that you build up in your head, and then when you actually see it, well, you know. Uh, Face of Death was made for, I think, the Asian market in 1978, and it was supposed to be made up of gore scenes from various news sources would sell accident footage and plane crashes and train things and hotel fires and whatnot. And when the distributors got or the producers got it, they wanted to add more to it. So they brought in an effects team to come and shoot these vignettes, which is what made the movie up. There's a great documentary that's on the 2012 Blu-ray of Face of Death, which I have, and it's called The Death Makers, and it's about the guys who actually put all the effects together. Because most of it is fake. This movie was derived from the Mondo films. Mondo films started in like maybe the late '60s, mid '60s, and they were kind of about various rituals and customs around the world. There'd be a documentary crew going around and filming these different things, and it became very popular in the grindhouse circuit. And it was a bunch of the Mondo films, there's Mondo Topless and fucking Africa Blood and Guts and whatnot that came out about it. I like the Mondo Kane name actually, and the song, the more more more, how do you like it? How do you like it? New show, same bad singing voice. Uh, that song came from that series, and I think it was like a porn star that sang it too. And then years later, it was used in the trailers for one of the Sex and the City movies. I don't remember which was the first or the second one. But I was like, what a weird marriage of like tribal customs and Sex in the City. No horses were injured, thank God. Sarah Jessica Parker. Do you think Ed Wood was the first time that anyone that joke was ever made? Because she's like, "Do I really have a face like a horse?" And I was just like, "Wow, that's mean." She's really hot in Striking Distance. You ever see that movie before with Bruce Willis? And they're like water cops. Might be the only person who remembers that movie. But I like the Mondo Kane name. I actually had a character. I had created I wanted to do like a horror host anthology show, and I created a character called Mondo Kani, who was like kind of a video store Daria for this thing, and we had shot two of them, but they just never came together properly. And then after that, a friend of mine, a friend of mine, she had come up with the idea of like, well, why don't we make her like, hot pink demon, and and I had written in like monsters and stuff like that. So she was kind of like, it was sort of like a public access horror host show in hell. And that was pretty fun. And I created these little, I designed them, but I had somebody make them for me. They were the video nasty puppets. And it was like, there were gremlins, but they were like VHS tapes that were like little monsters that kind of mess up everything in the video store. And we had shot like 80% of that. And then the people who I was working with before, they didn't like the performance of the main actress. And I had actually written some new scenes that we were going to shoot, and that was going to come out, but that never happened. I probably wouldn't use that character again because I feel like that old friend of mine, should have like say in that. So I came up with a character called Anna Log, and she's a kind of, what is it, Madame Leota, the head in the fucking Crystal Ball and the Haunted Mansion ride. There's this really cool TV from like either the 70s or the 80s, and it's a globe, and Aaron Plays had shared it a bunch of times, and it's really cool, and it gave me this idea for Analog, and she's a head in this TV, and she's like a horror host, and that's just one of many fucking ideas I'll probably never do anything with, but I still have the poster and all that stuff, and we had made this really cool kind of Mr. Rogers in Tromaville style intro where it was all miniatures that my friend Steve Mezzo made. And it was for Last Video Store on the Left by the Cemetery. And it was this idea. So I don't know, maybe one day I'll do something with that, and I'll use Analog instead of Mondo Kani. But, I have a million ideas I never do anything with, and I'm trying to shake writer's block badly. So here we are doing these kitchen table videos. So where was I? Mondo Kani. And that eventually gave way to Face of Death. And I want to say around 1993, I was in the 5th grade, and we used to go to a video store called B&C Video, which was in Marlton, New Jersey. It was right next to the library and the Kmart. And that was the store where I saw like, Evil Dead and whatnot, like all the, Last House on the Left and all that type of stuff was the first time I had seen it there. And I had very lax parents when it came to what we were and were not allowed to watch. They were like, we're fine with stuff, just don't repeat any of this stuff, and get in trouble, because I did that once for Friday the 13th. And, with Friday the 13th, you think, like, as a kid, you're like, yo, this is hardcore. Like, titties and terror, two good things. It's like peanut butter and chocolate, two good things that go good together. And we had thought we had known, like, whatever, like, Amityville Horror and all that. And then we saw Evil Dead, and it was a game changer. Like, I literally had never seen anything like that in my entire life at that point. And I remember around that time, Rob Zombie used to hosted the Sci-Fi Channel's Halloween thing. And I remember him talking about Evil Dead and like learning all this stuff. And then you got to remember, this was before the internet, so you couldn't just go and look up this shit. You had to like go, wow, like they raised this money from dentists, and this was like this young guy, and they were running with a camera, and it was crazy, And then the guy at the video store, his name was Chris. And Chris was like this kind of burnout ex-hippie guy who used to sit in a folding chair in the middle of the store and watch R-rated movies in the afternoon and fold his laundry and whatnot. And this dude Kevin that I used to be friends with, he and I went into the store one day, and we were talking about one of the Friday the 13th movies or one of the Nightmare on Elm Street movies, the gore in something. And we're in fifth grade at this point, and he's just like, "You guys don't know shit," you know. He's like, "This is the real," and he told us about Face of Death, and he's like, "It's all this real footage of like autopsies and open heart surgery, and a guy gets eaten by a fucking crocodile," and I was just like, "What?" You know. So my friends and I, we used to have like sleepovers on like Friday or Saturday. Like sometimes we'd be at my friend Kevin's house, sometimes we'd be at my house, sometimes we would go to other people's houses, and we would always rent like two or three movies. And some people's parents were a little bit more strict when it came to stuff. I remember I brought the movie, the video Dead, over to a friend's house, which is so tame. And this kid's mom, you had acted like I was like, "Hi, I know you're religious. This is my friend Anton LaVey. Can he sleep over?" You know. I should do the video Dead because I have a really funny story about the night that I slept there. But we would talk about Face of Death, and we hadn't seen it. You couldn't find pictures of it or anything like that. I remember one of my neighbors saying that he had seen it and that they gave out barf bags with it, which turned out to not to be true. Like movies like Zombie did, because I actually have one. So one summer night, my friend Kevin, myself, and this guy Joey that used to live where I used to live, and when I moved, I tried to like integrate my friends together, and it didn't work out very well. We were like, let's try to find Face of Death. So this is, again, in an age before the internet, and we pulled out the phone book, and we just started calling local video stores to see if anybody had Face of Death, and we finally found it. I don't remember what the name of the store was, but I remember exactly where it was. If you left Kevin's house and we were riding our bikes, you literally went through almost a town and a half to get there. And it was next to like this ice cream shop, and there was like a dance studio there for like jazz girl dancey stuff. His parents were out. It was nice out. They said, let's ride our bikes a town and a half over and let's rent this fucking movie. So we head there. And like when you're a kid, like that's fucking far. And like again, where were the fucking parents, you know? We're out there riding our bikes, we crossed a highway to get there. So we finally get there. We go inside. We ask the dude if he has Face of Death. And you ever watch Freaks and Geeks? Oh, she's back in the sink again. We get it. What an asshole. So you ever see Freaks and Geeks where they want to buy beer and the dude is in all the Adam Sandler movies? Like, don't see that happening. That's kind of what this video store clerk was like. I see myself in the reflection, or in the reaction here, but I also see reaction. I don't know words. Elvira, what are you doing? What are you doing? You're ruining my video. All right. So we're gonna pretend like she's not there. So we went across the street to the 7-Eleven, and there was a dude out there, and we said, "Hey, can you rent us this movie?" And he's like, "Yeah, for $40." So we we gave this dude cash. He went in, he rented the movie for us, he gave it to us, and then we prepared for what we thought was going to be like our we were going to become adults now. We were going to be like, this was the new. This was the shit right here. Like at this point, we're the baddest motherfuckers because you guys are talking about, oh, you saw Prom Night. Oh, you saw, Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3. Motherfucker, we saw Face of Death, we confronted death. And that's kind of what all these movies were. Like thinking about it a little bit more, why this movie, because recently watching it again, the movie almost comes off as quaint because you do think about things that happened after that. And I'm not a person who I love gore in movies. Obviously, I'm a huge like Italian horror movie. I even like the French extremist stuff. I like shock value when it has value to it. Like even Cannibal Holocaust is a disgusting movie, but it also has value to it. There is something it's trying to say. Same thing with like Sallow. But then you take something like, I don't know, like a Serbian film or like fucking the Human Centipede movies. and it's just shock value, just to shock, and that nothing, it doesn't do anything for me. Martyrs does something for me, but I'm not the kind of person who seeks this kind of stuff out. But I remember in the early 2000s, there was that time period where like Rotten.com and Best Gore and shit like that, and you look at you don't really want to see it, but you want to confront something, I don't know. So this thing that we were about to watch, we had built it up in our heads as to what it was. And I think I can pretty much say that I didn't really want to see it. I knew that there was going to be things in it that I didn't want to see. But you're with these other guys, and we started, I don't know. Thinking back on it recently, I can tell that everyone was kind of nervous about what they were going to see in that, because in your life, there are certain things you can't unsee, so we were making a lot of jokes at its expense on the way there, but you could tell that there was a bit of anxiety going on. And then you put the movie on, and in the beginning it starts out with like, there's morgue scenes, and there's fucking an open heart surgery and stuff like that. But then you meet Dr. Francis Gross, and you're like, oh, okay, I know what this is now. And then you get into like the little vignettes of, and there are things in it that, can't be faked. But then you get into like the monkey brains scene, and you're like, oh, I already saw Indiana Jones, or the electric chair. Like, well, no, like even as a fifth grader, well, you can't film that. And I also think it's funny, a lot of the things in the Mondo movies, their soundtracks are really fucking bizarre. Like, there's a chicken that gets his head cut off, which is real, and again, animal cruelty is fucking disgusting, and that's one of my big problems with the Italian cannibal movies and whatnot. Is I like animals so much more than people, so I can never justify that in my head. Like, if I had the money, the space, and the time, I just have all the fucking animals and not have to deal with humans, but I don't, but like the chicken gets his head cut off and they're playing Old MacDonald, or like when they have the electric chair scene, which is so clearly fake, they're playing like fucking Dixieland jazz. Now whenever I think about capital punishment, I want to mint julep. So I don't know. This movie did something to me. And then as we started to kind of realize what the movie was, it definitely softened the edge of it. And then it became less of a joking because I was uncomfortable, and more into we're joking because this is silly. And you start to kind of realize like the legend that this movie has, why it doesn't exist now, why people don't talk about it the way they did before, because it doesn't pass the smell test anymore. If you saw it, you go, oh, that's fake. They have the guy who they take out to behead. They're like a Canadian tourist filmed a beheading in Saudi Arabia, yet the guy's clearly wearing a fake head and shoulders because his body's tilted the wrong way. I'm no doctor, but it's just a bunch of that stuff that's in it, and it became this thing where then A, you feel a little bit let down that it wasn't what you had in your head, but B, you also kind of feel relieved that it wasn't what you had in your head, because what you have in your head is so much fucking darker and more perverse. Or at least mine is. And then now we're stuck with this movie for the weekend, and to take it back, because we didn't want our parents to know where we had gone and what we had seen. So I remember being like, yeah, Mom, like, man, I really, like, can we stop to get ice cream, and go in there? And then like when she was inside paying, like going back to the car and running around the corner and putting in, she's like, what are you doing? I was like, oh man, they have a poster in there. And I thought that was really cool. She knew something was up. She thought that you could see the porn section, which I wish you could. I was never in a porn section of all the video stores. I remember a friend of mine got pushed into one. I think I told that story, and he whacked his fucking head on the thing that was there. And I wanted to like go help him, but I never got a chance to, so I never got to see inside there. It's one of my big disappointments as a 40-year-old. But then people after that, like we kept the, what's it called in wrestling, the kayfabe or whatever. People were like, how was it? And I was like, dude, it was fucked up. Like, it was really, really messed up. Like, you saw, and then we would just make up shit that was in it. and then people be like, "Oh my god!" And then they would have their older brothers or whatever rent it for them, and they never broke it either. People kept it together, as far as I know, of what the movie was, which I thought was kind of cool. So we all kind of passed it along as this kind of rite of passage to like horror friends and whatnot. Um, but yeah, and then they became like and then in the sequels, Dr. Gross apparently saw too much death because the whole thing was about he became obsessed with death. So he took a documentary crew around to get as close to death as possible. But then in the sequels, he saw too much death, so he committed suicide. So he was replaced by like his brother or his cousin or something like that. It was really, really silly that they tried to keep a continuity to the Face of Death movies. But it was apparently like a big fucking hit and people knew about it. I think they were trying to do like a remake that had like a narrative that the like Blumhouse or one of them was gonna do. And then the sequels, because I had a 35 millimeter print of Face of Death 2, which starts with a body being like cremated, and I thought that was kind of fucked up because it was obviously looked real. And I remember I used to have the theater down the Jersey Shore, and I brought all my film prints down there, and the projection manager down there had tons of them too because he was a drive-in manager, and I would just build different film prints and throw trailers on them and stuff like that. And if the staff had a really good weekend, they would either watch, like whatever. I would just throw on whatever I felt like watching. And I remember throwing on Face of Death 2 and people being like, oh, I'm down the shore. I'm going to go drink because this is really depressing. And then by the end of it, I think it was just myself and like one other person in there because we're sick. And as they went on, like, they continued to shoot fake scenes and add real stuff in there. And then they became like the Trace of Death series, which I had no interest in, where it was all just that archival footage of like real shit. And I don't need to see that stuff. Yeah, so that was a real what the fuck. If you want to check it out, it is on Tubi. It's kind of silly when you watch it now. I just remember that feeling in my head of just like, this is the most fucked up thing I'm ever going to see in my entire life. And it didn't turn out that way. And in the end, it's kind of like, I don't know, you faced something, like you faced death and you came out the other side. And it's like why people go on roller coasters or watch horror movies in the first place, because it's safe. And I actually reached out to both the guys who watched the movie with me, and neither one of them responded to me on Facebook. So whatever. But I just wanted to see if anybody else remembered any of this dumb crap other than me. I guess not. So if you'd seen it, I'd love to know the situation in which you saw it. If you've never seen it before, what's the movie that you were told was the most fucked up thing ever when you were growing up, and then when you saw it, it was just like, oh, all right, well, that wasn't what I expected at all, I'm going to do more of these. Next time I am going to take people's suggestions as to what the next movie should be. So again, I wrote down a bunch on Twitter. If you want to leave anything below for me, I'd love to look at some different stuff. Doesn't have to be Tubi either. Tubi's just has a lot of fun trash on it. Maybe I'll do Swamp Zombies 2 at some point, like I talked about that movie a lot. Yeah, thank you for watching. And again, thanks everybody for subscribing to the channel and watching the channel and all that so far. It's actually been like a lot of fucking fun to do these again. And I miss having people to bounce off, but I'm hoping that I'll have some people soon and I won't be in the kitchen. I'll be in the studio. A studio. I'm trying to figure out a set and all that kind of stuff right now with some friends, but it's really, and I know I say this a lot and I don't want to sound like, like I'm pandering or whatever, but the people who've been responding and who have been watching and the conversations it started on Twitter and all that kind of stuff, and I've been sharing it in some different horror groups and film groups, like it's pretty cool to see that people actually give a shit about what I have to say about movies, because I figured it was just going to be me talking. I talk to my staff about movies and they just say, oh, okay, old man, that's that movie from 2002 that was 20 years ago. And I'm like, oh my God. It's all right. Well, thank you. And, Face of Death, it's not what I thought it was, but I'm glad that I saw it, and I'm glad that it was part of my, learning the magic tricks of film and the schlock that formed my opinions of film and of horror films, and I got to ride my bike and get exercise and watch movies with my friends and back in 1993. And honestly, I'd give anything in the fucking world to go back to those times right now. Hell, I'd give anything in the fucking world to go back to July right now and fix some shit. So yeah, thank you for watching, and good night.